Hi there, welcome to the video. Welcome back to the Dylan Rounds case and coverage, and welcome to those that are currently in the live premiere watching. I appreciate that. Today we're continuing with the discussions about the case, more specifically focusing on the possible damage caused to Dylan Rounds' trailer and trying to figure out who caused it and why. Is it directly linked to the case, or did it happen further back in the past? This video, in a sense, somewhat inspired by Indiana's comment recently in a previous video where she was talking about the likes of Dylan's truck and the trailer being locked, but how Dylan's pickup truck was broken into from the back, and it seemed maybe a little bit suspicious that maybe the family were trying to get a hold of something quick, and that's why they were in a hurry. I guess we can incorporate that today with different theories. Okay, one theory could be the family involved in some way when it comes to damages of Dylan's property, his trailer, etc. The second theory could be, if not them, possibly Brenner or somebody else, incorporating some of the timestamps, phone pings of today from at least what we've covered previously, so I can reincorporate the maps once again and just tell the story, just to rejog people's memories, at least from what we've heard of over time and how it's stood ever since. Okay, I know not everyone's going to agree with it, but it just helps put things into perspective when talking about today's video. And photos will be provided looking back at previous media to focus in on the areas which weren't picked up on in the past. I have looked at it in different areas, in different regards, but I didn't pick up on the stuff the likes Tom Evans picked up on or Indiana picked up on, right? In the past, I thought one thing was the TV, but turned out it supposedly wasn't. So that's why we're looking back to clear some things up, to maybe strengthen, reinforce, maybe a plot behind it, who's responsible behind it, etc. And of course, you can share your thoughts and opinions in the live chat on the right-hand side of the screen. Now, regarding my previous few videos, if any of you need to escape from conflict, tension, or anything unnecessary, unsavory people, recently on my channel, I've uploaded some recent videos, more light-hearted and fun. Feel free to check those out if you want to. There'll be some additional links down below in the pinned comment section area if you wish to visit them as well. Furthermore, one important thing to highlight, shout out to the people last night, shout out to the likes of Badger Life in recent time, their super chats, very good of them, as well as Maria, very, very good of those people, and more out there too over time. It's all very good. So with that all into perspective, this may be the first time in a while we're not actually looking back at comments like what we normally do, because I have catched up with most of the comments over time, right? So we're all good there. So in a space of time, I can at least present to you and share with you my thoughts on kind of like the topic, what we're talking about today, and maybe provide a little bit of a backstory, certain areas. You know, stuff which people have heard of before, but just to refer back to set the scene of this story. Because, you know, when you're talking about a case and there's a story or a story within, it's nice to lay it out on the table, and then you can go from start to the middle, cliffhanger to the end. And maybe by the end of this, we'll have a better idea, or possibly a small chance that it might generate a new idea for a new video down the line, which then obviously means more awareness and keeping the case alive. Before we go any further, just as a quick little heads up, as for the Christine Passe Parker missing woman case, I've not seen or heard any updates regarding that, hence why I've not really made any videos recently, okay? But if there are key updates or some material gets passed around, I'll let you know about it if possible, okay? Now, I think there was like a few little key dates which were presented, so maybe they can be shown to you. It's not breaking news type stuff. It's more like the background, the beginning of how things unfolded, really. So at this time, I'll try and present that to you, okay, in a different video. But as of right now, we're talking about Dylan Rounds. Is it considered a missing person case still? Just out of interest, anyone share your thoughts down below. We know it's a true crime case because of the way it's gone, the foul play and Brenner being charged, etc. But is it considered still a missing person case? Originally at the start, presumed missing, reported as missing. You know, it would be considered a recovery mission, or people have referred to it as a recovery mission by now. Okay, I get that. But the remains are missing. Dylan is technically still missing. So it's like a recovery, true crime case, missing person case combination. That's what I've always referred it to, kind of like a missing person, because it's a person and they're missing out there, dead or alive. Let me know if you agree or disagree down below. It's like how you address these cases, right, at different points in times. I mean, Kenny Veach, missing person, by some presumed dead, but it's still called a missing person case. So I don't know. Maybe it varies depending on what it is, because Kenny Veach wasn't true crime. So maybe there's a level of leniency there and openness to how you can label things and refer to it. But that aside, Dylan Rounds, focusing on Dylan's farm, Dylan's trailer, Dylan's pickup truck, you know. Where do we start first of all? Well, I know I can present the phone pings to you shortly and like who did what and who's responsible, then follow on with the photos. As for now, it's going to be loose, it's going to be casual, hopefully you understand this. So just to throw out there, when Candice Cooley, Justin Rounds got down to the place, on the 30th of May 2022, and they were searching about, trying to find answers, figure out what's happened due to the radio silence of Dylan Rounds at the time. But none of the family members received an update from Dylan or called back, so they all were in consensus that something was up, something was strange. So driving down to the place, is that suspicious? No. I guess it's a normal thing, what friends or family would do. If they've not heard back from somebody, after them saying that they would call back, give it a day or two, maybe one needs to go down to investigate and see what's happened. Who knows? Person may have got hurt. And that was kind of like running through their minds at the time. So I understand now. You know, it's about breaking these little events down bit by bit, right? Whilst people in the community can be skeptical of the case overall or certain family members, just as a question right now, okay? Is there anybody skeptical about the family's response when it came to the 30th of May 2022? Anything skeptical, suspicion, anything odd that stands out to you in terms of the response by the family? Or was it just a normal act? In my opinion, I'd say at that point, that time, it seems normal. Family, friends, concerned, possibly worried as to what's happening, not hearing back from Dylan. Does that normally happen? Probably not. Well, something must be up this time. So I can understand them going down there. What about Candice Cooley immediately reporting Dylan Rounds as missing? Is that normal? Let me know your thoughts. This is about you and your thoughts, those who are watching and those in the background and those watching later catching on up. I want to know your thoughts on the matter step by step. Does it all, tie in line with how people would normally follow a certain approach, right? To report somebody missing a day, like 2 days after, no response from them, and report them as missing. I guess it would make sense. Different situation, different scenario. If you had a teenager, or even an adult or a family member, a friend, at somebody else's house, maybe they lived there, full-time or temporary, and they went out the night to party, never came back the following day, and maybe the day after, then it would make sense. They're missing. They have left this property, gone out somewhere, said they would be back, maybe at a certain time, never came back, give it a day or two, bit of delay, nothing, report is missing. But Dylan Rounds is doing his own thing in Lucin, Utah, family in Idaho. So they're not living together. So does the response rate when it comes to reporting someone missing differ? You know what I'm saying? With the Kenny Veach case, Kenny Veach was supposedly reported 2 days after going missing, but in actual fact, that was a lie by the girlfriend. But the sister-in-law actually said that the report was filed 8 days after Kenny Veach went missing, which is very odd. Kenny Beach at the time, I believe, to Sharon, the girlfriend, text her saying, well, I'm going out on a hike. I'll be out there for 2 to 3 days and then I'll be back after. So there was a promise that one would be back after. Okay. Never returned back, never contacted anyone, then reported missing. Too late? Yeah, reported too late there. Bit odd. With the Dylan Rounds case, what was the only promise by Dylan? It was nothing about going here and then I'm going to return back to your place, or I'm going out that way and then I'm going to come visit you. That wasn't the type of promise, at least from what we've heard of. All the promise was by Dylan, once the grain truck has been parked, after that, I'll call back, I'll respond back in some way. That was never fulfilled, because that promise was not fulfilled. And if 9 times out of 10 it has been fulfilled in the past, then it stands out more like a sore thumb, which means higher senses of suspicion and worry. You know, maybe some people react different. Some people may think, right, not heard from somebody within the last hour, I'm going to report them missing. Is that too soon? I don't know. But as I said, people react in different ways. Just wanted to break it down bit by bit. Just let me know your thoughts, okay? So, what's done is done. But let's just also highlight, because I believe this was mentioned more so in recent time. I'm just trying to think, was it mentioned in the documentary, or was it mentioned in one of the previous East Idaho News interviews? Seemed more in recent time. I did discuss it on my channel though. A bit more of a recent one, I believe. And it's where Candice Cooley mentioned how when she was on the way down to the place reporting Dylan as missing, just before she did that, she was in contact with Don Hatley. And Don Hatley said, oh yes, I think it's now doable. You can now report your son as missing. And Candice Cooley said that was a little bit strange by Don's response. That Don was giving Candice Cooley permission all of a sudden to report Dylan Rounds as missing. Does that stand out to you? Any red flags there? I'm going to give you my thoughts on that. There's 2 different ways you can interpret it. Number 1, the suspicious way, that Don is giving confirmation for Candice Cooley to report Dylan as missing, and then an investigation can follow, because what has been done previously has been done. And that goes along the lines of Dylan being taken out, disposed of, buried, hidden, concealed, and evidence, or some of it, cleaned up. And Don's like, well, that's all done now, whether it be by him or observing Brenner, somebody else, doing what they've done. And then Don's like, okay, now I'll inform Dylan's mother that it's okay now to continue on and to push forward because we've got it sorted now. You know, like that. And I think Candice Cooley was kind of highlighting that, whether it be in the documentary or more so the last interview with Candice Cooley on East Idaho News. I think it might have been on East Idaho News. Yeah, just let me know your thoughts about it. Do you think it's odd how Don said, yeah, heads up, you can now report Dylan as missing? Why now? Why not before? Why does one have to wait? What's the pending thing in the background? Are they trying to get rid of something quick before anything takes action? I wonder. So that's a suspicious way of looking at it. Maybe, I don't know if people would call it logical. Let's just say it's logical. Possibly the more logical way of thinking would be maybe Don said to Candice Cooley that you can now report Dylan as missing because Don was searching about for Dylan beforehand, just checking where Dylan was, just in case Dylan may have got stuck somewhere or injured, trapped somewhere. And upon Don searching about at the farm, grain shed, and maybe a little bit further afar, Don didn't find Dylan. You know, I can understand that. Before you jump to conclusions and report someone as missing, there's no harm in checking the environment, the area, the perimeter, just to see if there's any sign, any chance that Dylan could be present. And once you got to that point where you concluded there's no sign of him, no sign at all, what's going on? And then you give the go-ahead, the green lights to say, Candice Cooley, you can now report Dylan as missing because I've checked the area, nothing's been found, he must be missing, he's gone somewhere. Okay. It's just trying to understand this. Candice Cooley, besides calling out Don on that point, saying it was a bit odd and strange by him, bit of a red flag, and yet all the other times, Candice Cooley has never really called out Don, never really been suspicious of Don. Justin Rounds has, but Candice Cooley hasn't. So why is that? Why that one time, the last interview, which was months ago now, Candice Cooley mentioned it as if it was a pure red flag, and yet she's never brought it up in the past? Why only, well, you can't say recent time, but why only in the last and latest interview did she mention it when it's something that happened way back at the very beginning? Why was it not talked about in 2022? Is it just because it's not that significant? Is it because Candice Cooley didn't think of it at the time back in 2022? I wonder. You know what I'm saying? But if it's to do with that logical thought and theory, what I came up with before, that might be why Candice Cooley never brought it up, because it was normal. Don's looking about, searching for Dylan, can't find him, then tells Candice, okay, now you can take action. Right? Well, if that's the case, then why did Candice Cooley then later on change the opposite way and direction and think, now it is strange. Now all of a sudden it is a red flag. But you didn't see it as a red flag back then, but you do now. What's changed in between? Is Candice Cooley now suspicious of Don these days or not? And why was it even mentioned in the interview if it's nothing that big? You know what I'm saying? Makes you think. So there's two theories to that. Let me know what you think. The suspicious one, that Don was delaying things, delaying Candice Cooley reporting Dylan as missing because things were getting done in the background, disposing of Dylan. Or do you think it was simply, don't rush too fast. Let's just check the area just to double check. No one found. Now you can report Dylan as missing. Which option do you think was the case there, right? As I said, I'm talking this through because this is like the order it supposedly happened in. So, later on in the day, 30th of May 2022, family finally get down there. Candice Cooley, Justin Rounds, searching about. Don't really find much besides the boots and going down to Dylan's farm. But the other detail to add in, because this is where we get to the first possession which has been touched, harmed, damaged, and that's Dylan's pickup truck, personal pickup truck, the burgundy Ford F-150, I think it was. But the back window broken into by Justin Rounds, which was mentioned more so in recent time, and I think maybe in the documentary too, mentioned by them, their own words. But the one detail that was added in a few months ago, which was never talked about before that, was Candice Cooley said at the time of when they were there and Justin broke into Dylan's back window, which you can, come up with a certain theory because of that, like how Indiana did. Candice Cooley said at that time when it happened that there was a sheriff, some kind of official LE member present on site by the side of them, and they did nothing. They just stood there and allowed it. What's going on there? Was an LE, was a detective actually present at the time? Or is Candice Cooley getting that wrong? You might think, well, it's not a big deal, is it? Why would she be lying about that? The only reason why I'm a bit about it is because it was never mentioned in the past. It was just yet another small detail, right? Just like the Don Hatley situation of telling Candice Cooley you are now able to report your son as missing, like giving her permission to report her own son. It's a bit odd. It's a small detail, but it's an odd response. It's an odd, event which happened. And it was only mentioned much later on in the case. Something so small, yet delayed this long, and then talked about, is there a deeper meaning behind it? Just like with this supposed detective, sheriff, whoever, present on site when Justin broke into Dylan's truck. Why was there no resistance? Why did the LE guy not say, hey, you need to step away from this vehicle. If you believe your son is missing, then we need to leave everything as it is and not touch anything. But I think this is what the biggest problem was. Normally, if it's like a true crime case, murder scene, involved in foul play in some sort, it's likely going to be treated as a crime scene immediately, most of the time. It is a death involved or something quite fatal, taped off, restricted access. But if it's a missing person and that's it, nowhere is really treated as a crime scene. It's just about making sure that the general public and people in the area are vigilant and aware of there could be a missing person out there. And even if it was the case of a kidnapping missing person case, it's just more be alert, be aware, this person's missing, and that person's responsible for it, a kidnapping. They could be armed and dangerous. Watch out. If you see anything, hear anything, then report into the police, call this phone number. Nowhere's treated as a crime scene at the beginning, right? Because it's just unfolding. But if something has already happened, and it's visible, and it's known, and it's treated as what it really is, a murder case, then things will be taped off immediately. The problem is with the Dylan Rounds case, at the very beginning, it wasn't treated as a murder case. It wasn't treated as a homicide. It wasn't treated as any kind of death, was it? It was simply treated as a missing person case. But what made things worse, arguably, is that the police didn't take it as seriously immediately on the get-go. That they thought that Dylan may have just been partying or going off elsewhere, more so because of his age and what he could be getting up to, right? And that is it. And he would return back later. So because it wasn't treated with that much seriousness by the LE themselves, obviously they're going to be more laid back. And because the case in general wasn't treated as a true crime murder case to begin with, then there was nothing to tape off. There was no reason to tape off anything. But obviously fast forward onwards when you find out what could have well happened, Dylan murdered, Brenner charged for it, fast forward on. You look back and you think, oh, maybe if things were taped off from the beginning, if everybody was on the same page and everyone knew it was a true crime murder homicide case, then maybe nothing would have been harmed, no evidence would have been lost, and a lot more would have been gained. Do people agree with that? I think that is a very good, fantastic overview of the possibilities of what could have happened, which ended up not happening based off these additional factors. Factors being certain people not taking it serious enough to take more formal action. But then the second one, that lack of awareness and maybe understanding to begin with, which was it not being treated as a true crime murder case. If it was at the beginning, then there would have been a crime scene. And if there was a crime scene, likely would have been taped off. And if it was taped off, such as a grain shed, then spring cleaning would or should have never have happened. And maybe even Dylan's farm, if that was treated as a crime scene, then likely Justin Rounds wouldn't have had the chance or opportunity to break into the back window of it if, as Candice Cooley says, is true, that there was a sheriff on site at the time. So a lot could have been prevented. Truck not harmed. Dylan's truck, 100 miles intact, would have revealed interesting data there. Dogs used earlier on, if it was treated more as a murder case immediately, might have found more scent. Those spots which received a final hit, Grainshed property and somewhere else. Forensic test was done in those areas. More data could have been collected. A lot more could have been collected in general. Greater success. A success in finding Dylan Rounds alive? Probably not. But a success in retrieving remains sooner than later and getting justice or some form of justice quicker than what has already happened, right? So that summarizes it there, right? But it's about looking back just before this and that, more so the event of breaking into the truck and the trailer itself, trying to understand who was it directly caused by, the family or somebody else leading up to Dylan's death. That's what we're trying to juggle around with today. Do you want to provide a bit of a backstory to understand how things unfolded to begin with and why it led to that and how it could have been avoided, okay? If things were avoided though, such as Candice Cooley, Justin Rounds, not having access to Dylan's truck, not being able to even touch it to begin with, because let's say that detective said, no, you got to stand back, you can't touch anything. Okay, it would have led to the vehicle not being broken into, and it would have led to that data, maybe the mileage remaining and not being lost. What about the initial damage? To what? The truck itself? No. the trailer, the damage to the trailer, more so on the inside from the looks of it. That's what we're going to be taking a look at today. Got to try and understand, was that caused by the family as well? Or was it by the suspect or suspects? You know what I'm saying? That's what I'm trying to understand. But looking back at Indiana's comment, because we've got to highlight that, at least acknowledge it. Indiana suggesting that Candace Cooley, Justin Rounds, maybe breaking into Dylan's truck to find something, to retrieve maybe documents or paperwork. Something to do with financial reasons, a motive there. Like, yes, Dylan Rounds needs to be found, but maybe they've got other items to find too, which could be on a higher priority list somehow. That's kind of like what was being suggested. Let me know your thoughts down below, whether you agree with that or not. Do you think that the family were trying to gain access into stuff, that they were impatient and not willing to wait the following day or two so the grandparents could bring down a spare key, but they just wanted answers immediately because there was a greater thing at risk besides Dylan's disappearance and death at the time? Let me know your thoughts down below. Now, if there's a level of urgency with Dylan's truck and breaking into the back of it, then, well, what about Dylan's trailer? Well, Candace Cooley said way back at the start in that Heavy D's first interview that the trailer and the truck was locked. So if the truck was locked and their response to that was, right, Justin, break into the back of it and get in, or look inside. Okay. Bit reckless, right? Brute force to break in. Okay. For them to also confirm that the trailer was locked, what type of action did that lead to? If they're already breaking into the truck to get answers and they don't find anything, did they do the same to the trailer as well? Possibility? Because this is the thing. Justin Rounds, Candace Cooley, Justin himself admitted that they broke into the back window of the truck. Before they were even down there, the family, whether the so hitting to the window then, whether somebody used a truck or not to dispose of Dylan Rounds, whatever, someone locked it. Would that have been Dylan or somebody else? Must have been somebody else. Can I just throw in a quick line? Do you know when people say the gun and the key fob may have never been taken away in the first place? The trailer was locked, but the keys and the gun fob were the keys and the gun fob? The key fob and the gun supposedly found in the trailer returned to the trailer, but people argue and say that the gun and the key fob were in the trailer to begin with and were never taken away. If that was honestly the case, were those items in there on the day Dylan Rounds was murdered? The reason why I say that is, if the family got down there a few days later, found that the truck was locked, who locked it? If the trailer door was locked, who locked it? If the gun and key fob were in there to begin with because they were never taken away, then how and who and then what locked the doors and still got out of the trailer? Or, you know, I'm trying to understand that. I guess the key question would be, we're going a bit deep there, apologies, but it's just on the mind, right? Whenever people refer back to Dylan's key fob, the key to operate Dylan's pickup truck, correct? Where is the key to Dylan's trailer? Is the key to Dylan's trailer on the key fob of the key used for Dylan's pickup truck? What I'm basically saying, to make it more simpler, the key fob, are there multiple keys upon it, upon that fob? One key for the truck, the other key for the trailer. Can anyone explain that? If there's two separate keys, two separate fobs, if you want to call it that. Maybe one could have been in the trailer and then the other one returned back, but no, it couldn't have been returned back because then you'd have two lots of keys. Yeah, I'm trying to understand, okay? I'm just trying to make sense of it all because I know we're talking about the damage factor of the trailer, of the vehicle itself and who caused what. Well, it seems like we can be confident and for sure because Justin Rounds admitted it himself that the damage to the back window of the truck was caused by Justin Rounds' family, right? That happened. But if anyone like Brenner or somebody else used the truck to dispose of Dylan Rounds, that they actually didn't damage the truck, even though there may have been in a rush level of urgency to dispose of Dylan Rounds, possibly in Dylan's own truck, and yet there was really no damage done. Besides it being, you know, a bit dirty, but, you know, that talk about the who washed and who didn't seems to have been cleared up, I guess, more so in recent time. So more damage was done by the family on Dylan's pickup truck compared to the possibilities of somebody using it earlier on, days before, to dispose of Dylan Rounds. Take that into mind, perspective, right? Damage to the trailer, more so on the inside. Now, others will be aware of it. Some may have not seen the damage or picked up on it, so I think it would make sense to look at the images very shortly, I think. I know I said about the maps. I think I'll actually push the map talk maybe later on in this video if need be and just refer to the photos as soon as possible so then people can continue along. I was just trying to think about the gun and key fob situation, okay? If you just put aside the gun for now, whether it's taken or not, just put aside the gun for now. It's more about the key fob. The reason why the key fob is important is, you know, did someone lock themselves out? Is it a situation like that? Just depending where the actual key fob was found. If the key fob and gun was found in the trailer, possibilities that it was there since Dylan went missing, since Dylan was killed. Then how was someone able to lock the trailer then if the keys were still on the inside? That would mean that another set of keys was used to lock the trailer up, whilst keys were still inside. I'm basing it on that theory, that concept where people say that the gun and key fob were never taken in the first place, that they remained in the trailer, that they were misplaced, or people blindly didn't see them at the time, but then afterwards, later cleaning and stuff, that they did come across it, but they never left. Well, if the keys, gun fob never left, then how was the trailer locked to begin with? You get what I'm saying? Does that mean that there is a spare key somewhere, or does it mean that a key came off of the fob? I'm trying to understand that, right? I mean, can we do a demonstration right now? Let's just do a demonstration right now for the sake of it. Is it possible to lower that down? Okay. So you got a door over there. I'm gonna open it and kind of talk it through. I don't know if you'll be able to hear the volume though. So just imagine if we've got the suspect, okay? Do I have keys on me? Give me a second, let me just get some keys. I just want to demonstrate it if possible. It's not these, it's the keys to it. It's a little bit small, okay? Can you see it? Does it show? A little key. Apologies about the focus. So just imagine this is the key fob, Dylan's key fob. One key is access to the truck. The other key is access to the trailer. I said, I don't know what the key fob looked like or how many keys were on it. So I'm just using this as a rough example, just as a disclaimer. So one key for Dylan's truck, the other key for the trailer, right? Can you lock yourself out of a vehicle? Like, you know, you've locked the vehicle, but the keys are still on the inside. How do you get in? Well, there are ways to get in eventually, but can it happen in the first place? Can you lock yourself out of your own vehicle? Of course you can, and the key can still be on the inside, okay? Can you lock yourself out of your own house? Not that I'm aware of. Can you lock yourself out of your own trailer? Not that I'm aware of. I guess it all comes down to the type of door you have that's present, right? So you get self-locking doors. Sometimes when you get buildings where it says, please leave this door open, or when you walk through it, make sure it doesn't close on yourself, because if it does, you're locked in or locked out. I can understand that. But we're talking about a trailer, right? We're talking about not high-end security, so that shouldn't be a concern. You know, maybe on the trailer door on the inside, it might have like a little lock or bolt or something which you have to activate from the inside, or like a little notch what you can turn and it keeps it closed but not locked. Is there I assume, I mean, we can zoom in on the photo shortly, don't worry about that. I'm sure there's like a little keyhole where you can insert it in from the outside and also maybe the inside, right? But I don't know, I just want to try and demonstrate it on the spot in the situation that the key fob was found in the trailer as it was described, but it never left in the first place. But the trailer door was supposedly locked. If that was the case, then what that would mean is somebody was inside of the trailer, locked themselves in, keys were on the side, and then the person got out through the window. You get what I'm saying? The only other way would be you went inside of the trailer, for whatever reason, at whatever point, keys on the side, or you put the keys on the side, but then you've got to have another key when leaving the trailer to then lock it up. Or you've got one key fob with two keys, one for the truck, one for the trailer. And one of the keys, more so to the trailer, is taken off the fob. Let me try and demonstrate it. I'm not quite sure how to demonstrate this. Do we say this is the inside, or do we say that's the outside? Let's say this is the outside, so then you can actually still hear me talk. So just imagine. Welcome to anyone that's watching. We are talking about the Dylan Rounds case. We're talking about the damage to Dylan's truck and trailer and trying to understand who's responsible for it. You know, it's already been figured out. It's already been explained about the truck itself. You know, the back window being broken by Justin Rounds, right? The questionable nature, though, of a supposed sheriff or detective on site, as Candice Cooley recently explained, which was never explained in the past, which I do find is a little bit odd. I might just ask that question now before we continue on with the demonstration, okay? So we don't forget. Does anyone find it strange? Anyone in the chat, anyone watching right now, does anyone find it weird how it was never really mentioned or brought to our attention that there was a detective or sheriff on site at the time when Justin broke into Dylan's truck? I've never heard it in 2022. I never really heard it in 2023 up until that last and latest East Idaho News Channel interview with the family. Why was it brought up so late? Because this is the thing. If the family are just there by themselves, you could say it's a bit dodgy in the sense that, you know, family, like in the eyes of Indiana's comments, possible ones, that someone tried, like the family, breaking in to get a hold of something because they were in need of it, to gain something, to hide something, to retrieve a key thing, financial or not, documents, paperwork, who knows, right? Or you could say it was more urgency and innocence, just desperately trying to find answers, very worried, desperate actions, heat of the moment, not thinking about what they're doing, and it leads to that. But then, if it is really true that there was a detective or sheriff on site at the time when it did actually happen and it was only brought to our attention within the last few months, it adds a new layer and depth behind it. It makes you question the police, the LE, the detective, the sheriff, whoever that was on site that just stood back and let it happen. Why did they let it happen? Why did they not intervene and say, maybe you shouldn't do that? But then again, maybe the excuse or counterpoint would be, well, they simply didn't do anything and stood back because they weren't under the assumption it was a true crime scene case at the time, so there was no need to interject, so they just stood back. Maybe. But still, it's just weird, and the oddness of it just being brought up when it could have been mentioned way back at the start when Candice Cooley was on that tirade of calling out the LE for this and that, for not taking this serious, for joking behind her back there, for being a bit argumentative or not willing to cooperate and delaying stuff and dragging stuff out. Then why did Candice Cooley not mention about, oh yeah, and that sheriff and detective was present when they watched us break into the truck and they did nothing about it? She only worded it that way a few months back. Why not a year back? I don't understand why that extra detail was added on more so in recent time than in the past, at least from what I've heard, okay? Does anyone else find it weird, the timing of it? Just these little details, just these little things being added into the story with time. Are people just adding it in for more context, or adding as they go along, making it up, slightly changing the story, but not too abruptly, so then it doesn't stand out as much? I wonder. But now, just to return back to that demonstration, if it's even possible. So let's just say this is the outside. That's the trailer door over there. Who are we going to walk in the shoes of? Dylan Rounds? If it was Dylan Rounds, would Dylan Rounds come out of his trailer? Would he come out of his trailer like this? Oh, I got to go and park my grain truck in the grain shed. Let me just lock up. There we go. And then walks on afterwards. Trailer door is locked, and that was by Dylan. But you see the action. Locking the door on the way out, what you'd normally do, right? How often, normally when you lock a door from the on the inside, that's because you're entering. So if it was Dylan returning back, let's say a Friday night, he's done his farm work, whatever. Oh, I'm tired now. I think I'm going to go to sleep or get some food or eat something. Open the door, whether it's locked or not, open the door, goes into the trailer, and then locks it on the inside, like that. Or like in most cases, let's shut that for now. In most cases, you know, if you're coming back from somewhere, if you're returning back to your home, of course the trailer isn't, well, it's kind of like a living space, but it's not his true home because he's on the move. But at points at times, it could become your home if you're staying there the night for one night because of the work done, such as on the Friday, I'd assume, okay? But normally, just in general life, you get back from somewhere, you go back to your house or hotel room if you got a key or something, whatever. You go in, you enter, and you lock yourself in, so then obviously no one on the outside can get in. That's normal, right? And when you're leaving a place you own or temporarily own and you got keys to it, when you're leaving, you shut the door and you lock it, so then no one else can get in whilst you're out off elsewhere, right? How often do you get someone doing what they do like with a car, where it's like, okay, I'm going to open this door, such as Dylan Rounds, but the gun and key fob never left the trailer to begin with. So in here, gun and key fob. I'm going to put the key fob on the side on the countertop. Yeah. I'm going to shut the door at least. And now I'm going to magically lock the door even though the key fob and keys are inside of the trailer. So what do I have on me right now to be able to lock the trailer door from the outside? Nothing. There isn't anything. So that's what I can't understand. Unless there is a spare key or an additional key elsewhere missing, you know, like, take this into perspective. Do we have a car on the spot? Yeah, we've got a car. So just imagine this. It's not a pickup truck, but it'll do, okay? In the car, Dylan on the Friday, or if it was Brenner on a Saturday, you drive about, vroom vroom, like that. You get out of the car, may have adjusted a few things inside depending if it was used, driven, or someone was searching about inside, hence all-wheel drive turned on and the seat was adjusted forwards. When you get out of the car, because it was said that the gun and key fob was found in the trailer, that I would say the overwhelming majority go along the lines and agree that the gun and key fob was inside of the trailer. The split is whether it left at any point, whether it was returned or not. That's where the divide is. But if you refer back to the origins, that gun, key fob, inside trailer, at least, then that would mean that the key fob to the vehicle, even though the vehicle was locked, there was no keys on the inside because no keys were found. So that would have meant that lock the door like that, okay? It's locked now. And then if the gun and key fob was found in the trailer, then someone would have had to gone into the trailer then, after, to then, put the keys there, whether it be Dylan himself before what happened, or afterwards by somebody else. Key fob on the side with the gun, then leaving the trailer, coming on out, car's already locked, the pickup truck, but the trailer door, that needs to be locked as well. But then that would mean you'd have to go back inside of the trailer to then get the key fob, bring that back out, lock the trailer door, and then what? The gun and key fob's inside. Well, the gun supposedly is, but what about the key fob? Well, it's in my hand because I've just locked the door to Dylan's trailer. So how do I put the key fob back inside the trailer without unlocking the door again? What's going on? So that would make me think, is there a small possibility that the trailer door was never locked and it could have been a mistake made by Candice Cooley? Let me just adjust that for a second. Does anyone agree with that? Unless there's a spare key somewhere. I wonder. Just trying to understand it. And this is the thing. Genuine question. But obviously, people were able to get into the trailer afterwards, and that the initial person before the parents, the other person was able to get inside and take photos, correct, and document it, hence why we've got the photos we have to this day. But how did whoever, the first person to go inside of the trailer after what happened, how did they get in to the trailer? You know what I'm saying? If Justin Round's, Candice Cooley's response to Dylan's pickup truck being locked was, well, the only way to get in at that moment in time is to break in with force and to smash the back window in, then what actions, what methods were taken on Dylan's trailer, which was supposedly locked? How do you get into something like that? Do you lockpick it? Do you smash a window in? Rip the bar off of the side window? Rip the door off? I wonder. That's the point what I wanted to get to up to now in this video, okay? If you have joined, it is advised that you rewind back to understand what's been talked about up to now, okay? Apologies if this is rough, but this is raw and natural without a script, and it's all done on the spot and demonstrated as well with the props I have, okay? Not all the props are to scale, of course, or to the correct specifications or requirements, but it's just working with what one has, okay? So I want you to leave your thoughts down below. Besides Dylan's trailer being locked, the door, how did the first person get in? Was it just simply waiting until a spare key came down? Like when the grandparents said, you know, the following day or two, that we could have brought a key down, a spare key, so you could have gained access to Dylan's truck, a spare key fob. Okay. Does that spare key fob have a spare key to the trailer as well? I wonder. And I assume, because there are some people saying in the early days that when it comes to being on a farm or with all this different farming equipment, you will have keys, but maybe universal keys, which could be used for multiple vehicles or something. Does that apply to Dylan? In this case, the key fob can be used on both the car and the trailer, or is it two separate individual keys? And if a spare key was brought down by the grandparents to get into Dylan's pickup truck, which was not needed at the time because of what Justin did the day before or so, did that spare key fob have a spare key to the trailer as well? And hence that's how they got in. This might make more sense when we tie it in with the photos in question of the trailer itself and the condition it was in and the potential damage caused, whether it be caused by one of the key suspects, Brenner, family members, friend, or somebody else. I think now is the time, without further ado, to get into those photos, just to look back at them and highlight the damage done, okay? Well, here we are with the first image, finally, as I said. So what we do have on screen for context is Dylan's trailer, okay? Do you call it his home, his portable, movable home, stopping in at from time to time? I know we've heard the stories in the past that Dylan did move about, going to family, visiting family, grandparents, Justin Rounds, Candice Cooley, over a course of time, moving about on the go. I can understand that. But at least Friday night, I would assume that Dylan Rounds spent the night in this trailer, correct? If he was doing farm work late at night, 11:30 to 11:45 p.m, he's not then suddenly going to start driving in the dark to go to Kurt Wadsworth's or Montello, is he? But the phone ping seemed to, I guess, tie in with being in his trailer at the time, even though that part was never really mentioned. You know, if I'm being honest with you, the very first phone ping that was referred to by Candice Cooley, or like the starting point of how the day unfolded, was 6:51 a.m, and that was near, supposedly, to the gate leading up to the Grangeshed property. What happened to the phone pings before 6:51? Is it because Dylan Rounds had his phone turned off? He only turned it on when he was about to make that call to Karen Rounds, I wonder. Any thoughts there? Because as long as the phone is turned on, then I guess the location services, the weather app, or whatever else you've got open on your phone will kind of like be tracking you in some way or another. And then the phone pings can come from that. So Dylan woke up in the day, well, early hours of the morning. His phone was already on, or he decided to turn it on as soon as he woke up, let's just say. Maybe checking the weather, or checking messages, I don't know. Then it should have gave a phone ping at Dylan's farm. At least that would have provided a starting point. At least it would have provided a strong bit of evidence to suggest that Dylan Rounds made it back to his farm the Friday night, and that Dylan Rounds spent the night at the farm in his trailer, following into Saturday. Just a small little detail there, which would have been nice, but never really truly mentioned, only the 6:51 a.m. timestamp. So just let me know your thoughts there. If anything has been missed, feel free to fill in the blanks. But that aside, Dylan's trailer. Take in mind that there is a second trailer on the left-hand side, which is out of the shot, you know, out of the screen. So you can't see it on this photo, but there is another trailer by the side. Now, when Dylan Rounds did custom farm work, Dylan was moving about, going elsewhere. I guess his trailer wasn't always on site. Am I correct in saying that? I'm just trying to think. Is there any Google Earth imagery I looked at which didn't show Dylan's trailer present at the time, which could have indicated he wasn't doing farm work at the time, so he moved on with the trailer? If that was the case, then that would mean he would have had to have moved two trailers. This is the thing. Dylan's pickup truck wouldn't always be on his farm because he would be using that to get about from place to place, and especially during his custom farm work. Now, what about Dylan's trailers? Would they leave with him if he was going further afar? Does anyone know? Feel free to fill in the blanks if possible. It would be appreciated. And if he did take the trailer with him, what about the second trailer? Did that just remain on site? Because what is the whole purpose of the second trailer at Dylan's farm? Is it just simply for storage? Well, if it's just for storage, was that trailer door locked as well? You get what I'm saying? I'm interested. Was the door locked? Someone like Brenner. If Brenner went down there on the 28th with the phone pings, timestamps of it all, 30 minutes spent at Dylan's farm by somebody in possession of Dylan's phone at the time, were they the ones responsible for Dylan's pickup truck being locked? and Dylan's trailer being locked at that time. Possibly. Which one followed first though? You'd think maybe the truck, unless that was used afterwards. Going inside of the trailer to see what you could find and then maybe locking up after yourself once you've finished in there. But still making sure there's no dirty footprints left, because the other thing you got to take in mind that it rained on a Saturday. Maybe not a great deal compared to the likes on Sunday, but it still made the ground a little bit wet, a little bit moist. So if you're walking on down to the farm or driving on down to the farm, you get out of the truck and then you walk across that ground, that dirt is going to collect on your shoes. So by the time you get into that trailer, it's going to leave a few footprints behind. Now inside of the trailer, there weren't any footprints. So would that imply that it's been cleaned down? Or would it just imply that no one ever went inside the trailer besides Dylan, and that's why there was no footprints? That Dylan Rounds didn't leave prints because when he woke up on the 28th and left, he did not return back to that trailer. Never returned back because he was killed. So he wouldn't have trodden what he stepped in back into the trailer. Is that a possibility? A bit to think about, isn't there? You know, if Brenner was present on the 28th down here, looking about, searching for opportunity, things to steal, to take for himself, or to use, possibly in, the desecration of Dylan Rounds, would that involve Brenner searching both trailers or only one? If one trailer is just for storage, then that could be of higher value compared to Dylan's personal trailer. Just a thought there. So why has this trailer, Dylan's own trailer, this one where he stopped in or had food in, why was this one searched, documented, looked at, recorded, noted down, and there's photos of it? But why aren't there any photos or ones presented clearly as for the second trailer? What happened to the second trailer, which is, on site, next to this one on screen, on the left-hand side? Why is that not one? Why has that one not been talked about as much or anywhere near? You get what I'm saying? Does anyone else agree? Does anyone else agree that the second trailer plays a role in the case in some way or another? Or is it just completely obsolete? And was that trailer, the second one, always there or not? If anyone can clear it up, that'd be appreciated, okay? But now, let's just simply do a visual damage report, at least what I can see on screen, and what's been notified by viewers with time, to look at the overall damage of the trailer. What was caused, more so in recent time, relevant to when Dylan Rounds was taken out, and maybe what was pre-existing beforehand, wear and tear over time, okay? Do we have before photos of Dylan's trailer before the 28th? No. This photo was taken afterwards, after Dylan's death, right? So whenever, whatever, the damage has been done, okay? Just for context. So I know we've looked at the photos before, but I just want to point out the things which I didn't acknowledge the first time round, okay? So what would be an example of that? Well, I think people were referring to this over here. That window, possibly a sliding one, whether it be a bug slider, like a bug netting to prevent bugs from flying on in, but still to be able to provide air to pass on through. Possibly. Like a sliding window. It looks like it overlaps the other one from the looks of it. Now, why would that be a sliding window on the outside? Shouldn't it be more on the inside? Well, actually, no. Because when I think downstairs, there's a sliding door somewhere. It slides, but the bit what opens, it's kind of overlapping the other piece. The pieces that underlaps is on the inside, the one that overlaps is on the outside, and that's the door that slides across. So I guess that applies to windows as well on a trailer like this. Well, if that's on the outside then what about on the inside? And the bit on the left, which appears lighter in colour, the rim itself is dark black, but the inner part appears to be filled in some way because you can't see through. But seems to be a slightly different colour to what's on the right-hand side. What's on the right-hand side appears to be some kind of glass plastic sheeting, which may, slide across. If that slides across, then what does it leave the bit on the right exposed and open, or is there glass present? I wonder. And as for that, is that, you call that a black bar? Has that broken? Has something detached off of it? Was there once like a window or a slider attached to that little black bar above? Does anyone know? Out of interest. The thing is, if there is a form of break-in, a use of force, how are things going to go? Well, there was no reports of glass, broken glass, was there? Well, I've not heard that by the family or anyone. If the glass was found inside of the trailer, then obviously someone broke inwards from the outside to get in. If the glass was found scattered about outside of the trailer, then it would have meant that somebody was inside and supposedly locked in for some reason. So they broke the glass to escape. Does that apply here? No, because we've not heard anything about anyone being locked inside. I mean, it could make sense as to why the key fob and gun was in there, but the trailer door was locked itself. And if someone was inside, then they would have had to have broken out some way or another. But there was no reports of any broken glass besides the obvious, the pickup truck caused by the family. So if there's no broken glass, does that mean that there was no break-in to begin with? Well, we can look at other areas within which will provide possible deeper context. And as well, I don't know what trailers are made out of in terms of the windows. Some may be glass and others may be on the plastic side, depending what the quality is, right? So, got to take that into consideration as well. Is there any damage elsewhere on the trailer? I mean, to be honest, you got to think of the reflection and the shading of it and the lighting. On the left, that appears lighter. On the right, that appears darker. So some people could say, well, on the right, there's a window, glass filled in, and then on the left, it's exposed and open. But if we're talking about a sliding window, that does make a difference, right? Well, that window is slid across, then it would fill in on the left, and then maybe on the right, there's already glass behind that. So like that sliding door theory. So I would understand that. Like, look at that window there. We can look at the door itself shortly, but this window here, that does appear to be filled in with glass or plastic. So there's a covering over it. It doesn't look damaged there. Underneath it is like another frame, right? Rectangular, going across, horizontal. That is more vertical, kind of a square, maybe not quite. You got like a rectangle down here, shaped window with its own frame. And I might be incorrect, but is that could that open itself more like you push outwards and it creates a bit of a gap so air can flow in? Because it looks like two separate like window frames there. And then as for the one over there on the far left, which is out of frame, that appears to be the same colour as that one and still filled in. So it could imply that there is still a window there and it's intact and not exactly broken from the outside. Just my observations only, okay? Down here, the only thing that stands out to me is you got a tree stump. Well, it looks like a tree stump. It's like a stepping stone to be able to get into the trailer because it is raised off the ground. I get that. More accessible. What's that there? Is that a piece from that? Because it looks like a piece is missing. Why would it be missing, though? How did it break? I wonder. Or is that used to prevent the trailer from rolling backwards or forwards? I mean, looking at the wheels, some of them appear to be stuck in the ground, or, well, maybe not. Just that one. When Ty Corbin went to one of the pivots, not Dylan's, but a different one, was it the one north of the Grangeshed property? I think it might have been. Yeah, it was. And Ty Corbin pointed out, saying, you see this pivot, look at the wheels of it, it's embedded in the ground, it's sunken in, you can't move it. I can understand that, when it comes to bad weather, rain, the ground becomes a bit more malleable, it becomes wet, moist, you can start sinking in it, and you got a heavy object stationary, not moving, it will sink in. And once things dry out and it becomes a bit more solid, it's a mess and harder to get out. You got that propane canister, tank, nothing strange there. Pole in the ground. Looks like it can be pulled, of course. Maybe Dylan did take it with him at times. As for this, I guess you call it front window of the trailer. Appears to be in okay condition there. No real damage. On top, kind of hard to tell. Assume no holes in the roof. Wheels seem to be okay, no slash marks, no bullet holes in the tyres like how the theory was with Kurt's backhoe. Really, it doesn't really give that much away that it's damaged. I mean, just personal opinions of those watching. You saw this photo presented to you first time ever in the case. What would your initial reaction be? Oh, that's a nice trailer. Or, that looks damaged. It appears like someone broke into it. What's the first thought that comes to your mind based off the visual appearance of it, right? When I saw it originally, I didn't think too much of it because it didn't look that bad, but maybe it's more so on the inside, which may reveal a different story, depending how you look at it. We'll get to that in a second. As for that door, I mean, it appears closed there. Is it locked though? Well, if it's locked at this moment when this photo was taken, it was most definitely unlocked in the next photo slide because it was all taken by the same person, so they would have had keys to get into the trailer. But it had keys to get into the trailer. Where did those keys come from? Was it a spare key? And where did it come from? That's what I'm interested in. Okay. It looks like you got two knobs. Is that normal? I don't know. I guess one of them is maybe to grab onto when you open the door and close it, and then maybe the one below is more... Is that the keyhole where you would put the key in? Or is it more a bolt that goes across? I'd assume it's a keyhole. Hence, so you could lock the trailer door when you're leaving. Okay. Unfortunately, I don't think there is an angle of the trailer door facing outwards in the photos, unfortunately. But you'd assume that there'd be a keyhole on the inside as there is on the outside, just like a normal door would be. Well, my thoughts. Let's take a look on the inside now. Oh, maybe not. Copied and pasted it then. Not duplicating it. There we go. This time round, I did circle it because when it came to some people in the background that were saying that, oh yeah, on the inside, that's been damaged, that's been ripped off. And I was like, what exactly? So I highlighted the potential bits and then the people confirmed it and said, yes, that's what I was talking about. So I just highlighted it for you in case you wouldn't. So the ground itself, right? The flooring. Fairly clean, as we've said, and people have come up with their own theories there. As for the countertop on top, bit dirty in some areas, I'll admit. The corners, though, on the ground looks a bit dirty, closer up to the cupboard door, like something was spilled or dropped on the floor, but overall, you can't really see any footprints either, can you? Unless you can, just leave a comment down below if you do. But regarding the broken items, first of all, this one here. We're not talking about the cardboard box. We're not talking about that bag, whatever that is. But quick question, what is in that bag? Anyone know? Is it clothing? Is it a hat or rubbish? And I've just noticed one thing, okay? Did I notice one thing? Well, yeah, I have noticed something, but it's not strange. It's the people that were present at the time that took these photos. But do you know that? What is that? Is that somebody's top, an elbow, sticking inside? You know, someone was stood on the outside near to the trailer door. and they had the hand on the hip so that the elbow was pointing inside of the trailer slightly with the shirt sleeve. It looks like a human arm, doesn't it? It looks like a human arm, that. But aside from that, picking up on it, you see this like plank of wood or whatever material it is, it's kind of dangling off. Appears that it looks loose, right? It's detached from somewhere, right? Appears like it could have been attached on top. Now, Tom said, oh, look, the handrail or the hand rest has been ripped right off. Do I believe it's been ripped right off? Maybe some pressure could have been applied on top of it, which caused it to break off, to snap, to rip, whatever. You know what I'm saying? If it's old or flimsy, wear and tear, that when someone stepped on into the trailer at the time of Dylan's death, maybe searching around for stuff like Brenner, when you walk on in and then you maybe put your hand on the nearest thing closest, like a handrail, which was that backboard from the looks of it, your hand slips off or too much weight is applied on one side, which then causes it to break off, possibly. Is it more of a headboard or more of a handrail, I wonder? Now, when I was saying to Tom about it, it just looks like a backboard to me, but Tom was saying how it could well be a chair on the other side, like the cushion or the seating area, what you'd sit down on, because there is a table there where that milk is on top, so you could sit down and actually eat the food at that table. I'd understand that, okay? So we could well be seeing the back of a chair, which had a handrail on top or some kind of makeshift headboard, but it's broken off. So would that imply that someone sat down on that chair, leaned back and their head pressed against that wood, which caused it to ping off the back? Or was it when walking on in and someone put their hand on top and it snapped? Was it intentional? I don't think it was intentional, okay? I think it was accidental. Do I know who caused it? I'm not sure. Do I know when it actually happened? I'm not sure. Did it take place when somebody infiltrated the place to maybe steal stuff and the time lapse of when Dylan was taken out, and just after that, after 7:43 a.m, afterwards going down to the Dylan's farm and spending 30 minutes there? Did it take place at that point? Maybe, maybe not. But why would it have been broken? I just say accidental. If you're accessing the place and you put your hand on the wrong thing you're not supposed to touch, maybe. Does it indicate a sign of a break-in? Well, sorry, I apologize about the sounds. I had a bloody hair in my mouth. Oh, I hate getting hairs in my mouth. I'm not a cat. I want cat balls in me. But now, something like this, what we see, circled there, does that highlight evidence, proof of a break-in? Not exactly. Because what's broken has not been broken to gain access to the trailer from the looks of it. Because whatever that is on the inside of the trailer. You tend to break something when gaining access, entry, which tends to be a window, a door, a frame, etc. It appears that there was nothing behind the door to then break. So really, it was its own thing, separate. So someone could have broken in some way, or accessed via a key, or just simply walked on in because it was already unlocked because Dylan never locks it. I don't know. Candice Cooley did say that Dylan never locked his pickup truck, supposedly. But Candice Cooley never said anything about whether Dylan locks his trailer door or not. So I wonder what's going on there. But let's just say there was a break-in. You break through the door, or you gain access, unauthorized access, you come on in, and then you accidentally break something. Is that a sign of forced entry, breaking in? No. Damage has been done to the property in the process of kind of breaking in, but it wasn't the direct correlation. Okay? So is it that suspicious? Not quite. It doesn't appear as if it was broken intentionally to try and reveal something. Just like, just in comparison to the likes of those doors up there for those little cabinets. If you saw a cabinet door ripped off the hinges, you could suggest maybe forced entry there to break in to see if any money was found inside, right? But not like a headboard or an armrest. I think that was more accidental by someone. Now, what about here? I don't know, does it show up on that one? No, because it's out of sight. This here. I'll be honest with you. In the past, I genuinely thought it was a TV, okay? But that appears to be incorrect. What Indiana said, what Tom Evans stated about this being some kind of window or window frame or window slider, likely they were correct. And the more I look at it on screen, it looks more similar to what was on the outside. That. How you see the frame of it, the structure, looks a little bit chunky, looks a bit darker in colour, more on the black side, right? Both the frame of it and kind of like the panelling. Looks like it slides across. And then you got this one here. Two separate ones from the looks of it. So does that mean one overlaps the other? The one on the outside is still attached, but the one on the inside has broken off. Now, if you were forcing entry, breaking into a trailer, and it involved windows, smashing glass, well, glass would be found on the inside, the glass would fall inwards. Breaking a panel, pushing a panel in, well then the panel would fall forwards, be pushed inwards into the trailer, like what you see on screen. Now, my question is, why is it stood up perfectly? Why did it not flop over or fall to the ground? And why does the height of it appear taller? What I'm saying is, you got those dodgy curtains, okay? Those dodgy, dirty curtains are basically what you see here, right? That's why you can't see in. My question would be, if those curtains were opened, open the curtains, does it then reveal an entry point here? Yes or no? Left-hand side or right-hand side? I wonder. Get off. I hate it when the fucking UI overlay shows up, little bastard. But, do you get what I'm saying? Double tap just to prevent anything else spazzing out. Those curtains. Move those curtains aside. Does it reveal an entry point? Is it exposed? Could you climb on in and climb on out of that area? Yes or no? If you could, do you honestly think Brenner would slither his way in and out like a snake? He'd probably get stuck with his legs in the air. I just don't think he would go to that length to climb on through. If you broke that window or pushed the panel inwards and you're climbing on through, right? You got to climb over that countertop as well. You'd probably be knocking a lot of stuff off. But I'll tell you something, okay? And it makes a little bit more sense if you think about it. If you used to go on through the door, this is not obstructing the entrance, is it? Like it broke afterwards once the person was inside. If for some reason the person gained access through that window and climbed on through, they're going to be crawling, dragging their body in on all fours, or almost. That there'd be pouncing on that table there where the milk is and all the other stuff, which some of it could have fallen onto the ground if the person was, wiggling in. But at some point, maybe to gain balance, in fact, they may have put their hand on that further point there, that headrest, their hand pressed down on it, which then caused that to break off whilst they were still climbing through the window. I could see that happening, okay? I could actually visualise that. It makes a bit of sense. But if that really was the case, then who exactly broke into the trailer then? Brenner, because of his size? Or somebody else who's lighter and slimmer? You get what I'm saying? Anything else to highlight? Yeah, just to refer back to that that window, that slider, whatever you want to call it, the height of it, it looks like that it's on legs because it's stood upright. Why is it stood upright? Why does it have legs? Is that because that's how it's attached to the window? Any clips or hooks? Not quite sure. And my only other question would be, if that fits onto the window, does that fit on the inside of it, or does it fit on the outside of it, such as on that black bar? Does anyone know? Out of interest. If it was on the inside, I don't understand how, because it doesn't seem to fit the window from the inside because of that countertop table. And with it resting on top, it's actually hitting just underneath the cupboards. So how do you fit that into down there on the window, unless there's a little gap? And why is it stood upright like that? That's what I'm trying to understand. It doesn't really look that see-through from here, but then again, it looks a bit dirty. I mean, the more dirty it is, could that imply that it was because it was on the outside? But then, I don't know, would someone break a window to get in and then bring in the frame as well so that it doesn't look like forced entry? The only other thing is, and you don't really see it from the outside, focusing there with that window, you look at the back on the front, behind that supposed panel, there appears to be something that is almost like sticking outwards on the inside, like a frame, broken frame. I could be wrong. You don't see it on the left-hand side, it's a clear window. But then on the right, there appears to be an overlay of something on the inside, maybe? Is that the area of where the window is exposed and broken? Hard to tell. If it was, then the outer sliding window has been slid across to fill in the exposed area. But what about fingerprints? If anyone gained access to the trailer and maybe forced entry as well, they must have been wearing gloves or cleaned up after themselves, right? A closer look. That's what I was referring to. Do you know above the cocoa, what they're called, cocoa balls or cocoa pebbles? What is that? It seems like a bit of, just like a window frame, broken, hanging on the inside. Looks a bit dodgy. Up there appears to just be the cupboards, one of the doors left open. Well, I mentioned it originally that it said the number 3 on the inside of that cupboard door, but people were saying how when it comes to manufacturers or people fitting the stuff in, they'll number it as like a form of code system, so then they can track what's what, and when they're piecing it all together, they know what to add and where it goes. Just kind of like a prompt, I guess, to remember. Which makes sense, I understand that, because I think sometimes flat pack furniture is the same thing. Anyway, just let me know if you see any more damage, right? The amount of trash, the amount of rubbish that's on that countertop, I'm surprised none of it fell on the floor if someone did break on through the window. You know, crawling over that, you'd probably push it aside, right? Or knock it all on the floor, yet that didn't seem to happen. So, any answers, explanation there? And I said, people have said the ground's kind of clean. Well, yeah, but in the corners, on the edges, it looks very dirty, right? So, was that by Dylan, maybe? I mean, they said that Dylan Rounds would leave food out on the side. I think there's a pack of sausages there, just left exposed. The milk as well. Cocoa things there. Not exactly hygienic, but it's just where Dylan was. Even eggs as well. Is that it for the photos? Yeah, it appears to be. Do we actually need to go onto the maps? Probably just very brief. No, probably not. Probably not at all, because I've kind of explained it already in enough depth. Basically, through these photos, what we've looked at, if there's anything else I've missed or failed to acknowledge, just leave a timestamp down below and just explain what you see, okay? So to give a bit of a debrief or a summary, you can at least say that there was proof, and it was admitted, that there was forced entry upon getting into Dylan's truck by the parents themselves. But as for the trailer, that remains a bit of a mystery, depending on how you look on it, your outlook. Visually, there appears to be some damage, more visible on the inside. Was that a part of a break-in when someone previously, during the time of disposing of Dylan or just after the murder, such as Brenner, was responsible for it? Well, can I be honest with you? Honestly, if Dylan's truck was accessed by the killer, such as Brenner, right? No damage was done to that truck prior to what Justin Rounds did to the back window. No damage to the truck caused, from the looks of it, by the killer. But it appears that all-wheel drive was turned on and that the seat was adjusted. Whether it be driven or not, someone must have got inside to adjust the seat and to turn on all-wheel drive, right? Can we at least agree with that? Is it because the person was adjusting it to their comfort level so they could drive it? Maybe. And for those that don't agree, that it could have just been adjusted to then reach around the back, to reach over to try and get hold of an item. You might move the seat forwards to then see what's underneath, or to get in more easily, better access. You know what I'm saying? Well, if that was the case, there was no sign of forced entry then, before the family's presence. So why would there be any need for forced entry upon the trailer? What I'm getting at, on the basis at least, on the basis that Dylan's key fob, which has Dylan's key to his truck, as well as maybe a key to the trailer, for someone to access Dylan's truck without causing any damage, and then to be able to leave it in its state locked, would imply someone had a key to begin with. Was that taken off Dylan Rounds during the murder phase earlier on? Possibly. To use the key to access Dylan's truck to rummage around and take something, or just to look, and then to lock up afterwards, let's say, then there would be no real need to break entry to the trailer, even if the trailer was locked, because you'd have a key to get on in, and you'd also have a key to lock up after yourself, right? It makes no sense using a key for the truck, but then not making use of the other key for the trailer and just breaking in. That wouldn't make any sense. Unless that the key fob only had one key to the truck and no keys to the trailer. But then that question would be, where are the keys to the trailer then? Where? If the next question was, or the next response was, there was never any keys for the trailer to begin with, and that's why Dylan had it always unlocked. Well, no, there has to be keys. You're not going to be driving with a trailer on the back with the door left open. You get in trouble. It's a bit dangerous and not practical. So there would have to be a key to lock the door anyway. Candice Cooley is firm, and has been firm for some time, that Dylan Rounds would never lock his car door, his vehicle in general, because I guess where they were, no one was really going to steal it. Well, kind of ironic that, considering the likes of Chase Venstra, Robert Aviles have been done for burglary over time and stealing things, but Candice Cooley wasn't aware of that. Was Dylan Rounds, I wonder? Maybe not. But if Candice Cooley is so certain on that, but Dylan would never or hardly ever lock his truck, then what about his trailer? Did he ever lock his trailer door? If he didn't, then obviously the person that did lock it likely was the one that locked the Dylan's pickup truck as well, which would then mean that they'd been in possession of both keys for both forms of personal possessions and property. Right, there we go. So, to respond back to those people that say it appears that things were broken inside or upon entering that trailer, why? If you're going to break entry to the trailer because it's locked, but you don't break entry to the car because you've got keys, and why not use the additional keys on the fob for the trailer? That's kind of like what I'm suggesting. You might have to rewind back to pick up on everything that was talked about there, okay? Because there was a few different scenarios. Take in mind that I'm giving you my thoughts and opinions as we go along, some for and against arguments, as well as what other people have and would be saying, okay? It's not just all coming from me. Take that into consideration. So just let me know your thoughts down below. The focus on the damage report of Dylan's possessions trailer. That, was it all down to family? A deeper reason behind it, kind of like what Indiana is suggesting? Or more so, the killer, the one responsible for Dylan's death? Just wanted to focus on this because, as said, there was some things missed out on previously. Wanted to highlight it and return back to it again. As for supposedly Brenner's next court appearance will be October the 2nd, slowly approaching. Will I cover it? Well, it just depends what's being talked about. Will it be mentioned by Candice Cooley? Maybe, briefly. Will it be a success? I don't know, time will tell. Will it be mentioned by Nate Eaton? Will there be an interview? I guess it just depends how far, it goes and how much is talked about. If it's of value, then there might be an interview just to catch up on everything. Will I do a video or an analysis of it? Might do. Just determines the length of the actual case itself and how much value it has, right? Is that it? I think so. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. For now, goodbye and good night.